We'd like to speak today about karma, what karma is, how it manifests in our lives, and whether we can change it. Let's start with the basic question. What is karma?
When we talk of karma, it's certainly not an English word. It's a word from Sanskrit, and it means action. So just action. But in fact, we know quite well that when we talk of karma, we talk about action and reaction. So one can go even further and say that it is related to cause and effect. But what types of cause and effect, that's something we can go into more deeply in a moment.
So I understand that the law of karma does not apply only to us as individuals.
Maybe just before that, I would think it's good to talk about the laws of evolution, and in fact that we're talking of three main forces that drive the universe. And if we talk about the forces that drive the universe, we see the law of unity. That's certainly something that is really important. Then the law of karma itself, action, reaction, and also reincarnation. And these are the three main elements on which the whole of the universe is founded. So if we talk about the whole universe, we see that karma has a universal element. It is the karma of the earth. It is a collective karma of humanity, and then it relates to you and me as persons. So if we see that the universe has a karma which is related to action and reaction over boundless periods of time, over millions of years, this is something that is accumulated, also having an effect on humanity. So therefore also on our planet. So we can say that the planet, there is a planetary karma, and this planetary karma is the state of being as we see it today in its revelation. And then of course also defining and having an immediate effect on its possible development. And when we talk of human karma, then of course this is karma which is related to, well, I can say that, to humanity. So the humanity of the 6-7 billion people who are on this planet and how they function, how they react one to another, this is all related to the karma of humanity, which then, from a individual point of view, is related to ourselves. So we have then our personal or individual karma.
Usually people say that karma is something bad for us. Is it really like that karma is bad? Or maybe it is good?
You know, when you talk with people and they say that something's happened to them or to somebody else, they say, that's because of your karma, that's bad, or that's good karma, that's great, and you've done something, you've chilled out and you've moved into a new period of life, this is good karma. But how on earth do we define karma to be good or bad? Because what are our criteria? What is the relationship that we're trying to solve in talking of karma being good or being bad? With respect to what? Is it respect to ourselves, to our selfishness, to our egocentricity, to our I being who wants to develop, and then one says, well, this is good karma or this is bad karma? As we said, the origins are very ancient. We talked about their Sanskrit origins. So we're talking about universal knowledge or universal teachings. So then good and bad are not polarities, are not relative, but are related really to the spiritual essence which we have in ourselves. So if we consider that each human being carries within himself or herself a spiritual essence, that spiritual essence will either be supported or negated. So good or bad karma will then be related very much to, are we furthering, are we promoting that spiritual essence in man, or are we negating, are we fighting against, are we violating in some ways that spiritual essence? Then to be able to define karma as good and bad has a sense. So there is a Christian statement where you say you reap what you sow. So you sow what you reap. And that has then, of course, an effect which goes beyond our own individual life, or a lifespan of whatever the European or world average of life is, 60, 70 years today.
Can we avoid the effects of karma?
So is everything mechanical? Is everything without any freedom in the sense of free will? And to what extent? What is the measurement of our free will? I can, depending on my state of consciousness, decide on doing A or B. So therefore, I have a relative level of free choice. That relative level of free choice is there, but it is conditioned by my state of being, by my karmic state of being, what we were saying before about the personal aspect, which is linked to the human aspect, which is linked to the planetary and even universal aspect of the karma, which we carry then, or we incarnate in ourselves. So what we have to say is that nobody can escape from the effects of his or her actions. Now, those effects may not be visible straight away. They may take a certain time, but they are always inevitable. So karma is linked to the inevitability of our actions and their follow-up.
Does this mean that karma relates not only to our present deeds that we make in our present lives?
It's really quite interesting if one would say that there is also a future of our karma, or our future karma which we're producing, which is more on the subtle level. So on the level of our thinking, which immediately has an effect in action, of our emotions, of the way we are. This will have an effect on our environment, on ourselves, after a certain period of time. So we are now, by what we're thinking and what we are, already producing our future karma. But we have to also look at the past. And if we look at the past, we see that what are we composed of? We're composed of a number of elements. This is all in our blood. So it means that we have all the past incarnations which make us what we are today as a totally new personality. We haven't come from nothing. We are, in fact, the result of all the experiences of the past personalities that incarnated or were incarnated in what one would call our microcosm. So that has an enormous effect, and that's inscribed in what one can say is our respiration field, that astrologers would talk about the 12 signs of the zodiac. So that is real and has an effect on whom we are. Secondly, we also have a blood inheritance. It's the heritage, possibly the legacy, but it's the heritage that we have of our parents, of our grandparents. So we are linked there. We're linked through our genes and through our chromosomes in such a way that we also describe in our being, in our personality, that past. And then, of course, the karma that we have accumulated during this life. So from zero on to wherever we are at this moment in time, we have a baggage or a luggage which we carry with us, good and bad, positive and negative, in the sense that I've tried to explain, related to the intrinsic spiritual being in us. Is it adding positively to spiritual development? But that begs the question, what is spiritual development? Or does it detract from spiritual development?
Do you want to say that our life is fully determined, that we cannot do anything about our destiny?
Our lives are determined, but I would say they are not determined 100%. Certainly not. Because otherwise, either we would be like robots or we'd be like minerals just totally crystallized without any possibility of movement. But we have movement related to our bodies, and esoteric science and the modern Rosy Cross explains we have the physical body, the etheric, the astral and the mental bodies, and these affect our consciousness. And there we have a certain latitude, there we have a certain scope of possible action and reaction. So we're not fully determined, but we're certainly not autonomous beings, because we have talked of our individual karma, but that individual karma is also related to the group to which we belong, our country, our race, our environment, the environment we're creating in our family, that we're creating in our work situation. Continually, we are developing and creating a karma. So through very selfish deeds, through egocentric eye trips, if one can call it that, which I think we can, we are in fact creating an environment, an atmosphere, which we could call an astral atmosphere, which then dominates us, because we are linking ourselves then to those unclean, destructive, egocentric ways of being, which link us into those power fields of destruction. Now, let us take it in a positive sense, that if someone is seeking, if someone is moving along a spiritual path of inner revolution, is creating inner space, then also that person will have a link with others who are also moving in this direction of non-violence and so on. But coming back to ourselves, people talk of sickness, people talk of illness, of pharmaceutical companies that are there preying on us and wanting us to be ill so that they can make their billions every year. So we are thinking ourselves to be ill or to be sick. And that is also accumulating karma of one sort or another. So when we think of our state of being and our health, we should also see this very much implicitly, but also explicitly linked to the karma that we are accumulating in terms of sickness, in terms of health. So everything begins and ends in ourselves.
So we really cannot change our karma. We are stuck with it, doomed with it, or can we have some influence on it?
As human beings or human animals trying to become human beings, there is a level of self-will, but if it is only accentuating my will, therefore against the will of others, and therefore creating conflict, we are increasing karma, and then it's a vicious circle out of which a person cannot come. But if we begin to look for the spiritual essence, and that spiritual essence is in every human being, it's not in an external religion or in an external God. The kingdom of God is in us, is in you, is in the person. Well, if that is a statement that we can make that is a very powerful statement, which means that by this change, by this revolution inside of ourselves, we are then going through a process of dissolving, an alchemical concept, we are dissolving, we are then negating all our karmic ties one after another until such a time, yes, that a person in a process which is a spiritual process of reversal, of transformation, and what I would call, and the modern Rosy Cross talks of transfiguration, that karma is then expulsed, is then thrown out of our system, because the I, the ego, is then also removed, and the personality and all our talents can then concentrate on soul development, because we are essentially soul beings.
Fantastic. This means that we can really do something about it, and not only that karma influences us and our lives.
Yes. It means that nothing is inevitable. Karma as cause and effect, and the way we are, depends on us. It depends on each one of us. Do we take a decision or not, linked either to an egocentric vicious circle system, or do we open up to the truth? Do we open up to the light? Do we open up to infinity? When? Is that after death? Certainly not. Is it now? Yes, it is now. So it means that we move into a totally different paradigm, a totally different way of being, which is very simple. It's not something which is related to one's mental faculties, intellectual development. It's not knowing more. It's not that type of knowledge. It is to know yourself, to overcome yourself. These are the processes. And to do that, it is a process of purification. And if you and I were talking of purification, I'm sure we would quickly come to an agreement as to what are the elements of purification that are necessary. We start off with our physical purification. We then move into our emotional and into our mental purification. And these are the basic tenets of a process of transformation that can take place every day. Every morning we wake up, through the day where we have our different activities, our professional activities, family responsibilities, whatever we may have, wherever we are living, we can then break out of that karmic prison, which is individual, but also planetary. So then you can imagine someone who is doing that is not only having an effect on himself or herself and his or her immediate environment, but is having an enormous effect on the whole world. And you know, the environmentalists are saying that when a butterfly flies in the Amazon, it has an effect on our industrial world. Well, that is even more so, even if it's on a more subtle plane. This is more so when it comes to our thinking, so not positive thinking, but clean thinking, clean emotions. And if we go through that environmental change in ourselves, well, then we're moving into contact with the universe. We're moving into contact with infinity. We're moving into contact with light. And there are beings, there are communities, there are those who we could call the universal brotherhood, we could call the community of the souls, that is also looking after our planet. And if we link ourselves in that vibrational way, then we are helping through a renewed kundalini, starting with the kundalini of the heart. We are then having an influence on humanity as such.
Thank you very much for sharing this insight with us.
Well, thank you very much. And I think we can go on with these essential questions, but which provide us with the necessary answers. if we look into ourselves. Thank you.